Good morning, Newport, and a special good morning to our live studio audience. I hope you all grabbed a delicious slice of pizza provided by Sergeant Pepperoni's. Sergeant Pepperoni serving love and pizza to Newport Beach since 1976. Voting is officially over, and now it's time for some election reflection. Kevin Muldoon and Diane Dixon both won their incumbent chairs for another term, and Joy Brenner has officially beat Scott Piotr by a few thousand votes to become our new city councilwoman. In one of the closest races in Newport Beach history, Tim Stokes is currently leading the incumbent Mayor Duffy Duffield by just 395 votes at the time of this taping. As votes are continuing to be counted, we'll let you know when the results go final. Of the two incumbents who declined to come on our show, one lost and one is losing. Coincidence? I'll let you decide. Now that the election is over and the mudslinging has come to a halt, we can get back to focusing on what's happening currently on our city council. At last week's council meeting, we learned that Councilman Will O'Neill went to the White House. Our Newport Beach firefighters helping fight the wildfires burning across this state. And Newport is participating in an effort to end homelessness. Nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and businesses are uniting their resources to focus on permanent solutions operating under the name United to End Homelessness. In other exciting news, Newport had another document shredding day. And this time we actually had too many documents to shred. Don't you love this time of the year? Family, holidays, and shredding all that you don't want anyone to know about. That's right, citizens were turned away with their confidential papers because the two allotted CR&R trucks filled up within the first hour of the event. If you watch our show at all, it's not very surprising that Newport locals have a lot of evidence to hide. This event was included in CR&R with their original contract in 2013 to sweeten their deal with the city. And if you recall, this is the same company responsible for the death, tragically, of a local child. We'll dive into the CR&R contract more in an upcoming episode. The Balboa Village area is getting some improvements, but not for cheap. City staff informed us at the last council meeting that we will spend $707,000 on improving landscaping and other things in and around the Balboa Pier area.
And then the rest of this project is within this package. We had landscape restoration on Balboa Boulevard and Main Street as the main streetscape project that was identified in the master plan back a few years ago, replacing planters, hanging baskets, add a little bit of a spruce up at the pier restroom. The landscaping there was looking a little tired. And then we also had some tripping hazards with the tree wells in and around the village.
In a drastic change of pace, Councilman Scott Piotr actually spoke some common sense, echoing what several citizens were thinking. Is this really what we should be spending money on?
And here what we're being asked to do tonight is to approve not only the original budget, but add another $160,000 to the budget to do a lot of upkeep and maintenance on an area that we've spent a lot of money on already.
The motion to approve the contract passed 6-1 with Piotr being the lone dissenting vote. The one thing we will miss about Piotr is his reluctance to spend city funds. And miss is a strong word. Remember Gondola Greg, who we talked to this summer after a council meeting?
So we're looking for a new home and we're trying to get the word out because we got to find a home for our fleet of gondolas.
Well, he found a new home. Gondola Adventures will be located at 200 Bayside Drive, right under the PCH Bridge. God bless Gondola Greg. The big topic of the night was how to handle street vendors. With a new state law decriminalizing sidewalk vendors, Newport has come up with rules about how to prepare for an influx of hot dog carts, pretzel stands, and, fingers crossed, hopefully, an elote man. We can thank Councilman Brad Avery for asking some important questions about amending the city's municipal code.
Could we discuss again what constitutes a vendor? There's two types of vendors. There's a roaming vendor and a stationary vendor. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's, like you said, there's two types of vendors. You have stationary vendors and you have roaming vendors.
The roaming vendors have a cart that's 4 by 4 feet.
They don't have to.
They don't have to.
I've seen enough James Bond movies to know that if there's a vending cart coming down my street in my house, I'm about to be assassinated.
Kev, no one's gonna assassinate you, man. Just enjoy the hot dog and soft pretzel, please. The motion carried unanimously 7-0. Tonight's guest is a Newport Beach legend and the individual who inspired Riley and I to start this show in the first place. She started coming to Newport Beach as a little girl in the 1930s and has been a resident activist longer than most of us have been alive. Ladies and gentlemen, Jean Watt.
Thank you, Alex. I'm here with Jean Watt, longtime Newport Beach activist. Thanks for joining us, Jean.
Thank you for having me. You have a big audience out there. So
there's like 200, maybe 300 of them. So tell us, how long have you been an activist for the city?
Since 1970.
Wow,
Yeah, right.
48 years.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
But I didn't intend to be one at all. And I think there's a lot of folks out in the community that we can make activists out of who may not intend to be one either.
Well,
You might be one of those.
funny you say that because it was you who inspired us to do the show. I'll just let everybody know we were doing research about the history of Newport Beach, and you invited us over to your home, and we talked for 5 or 6 hours, and then toward the end of it, you start bringing up what's happening in the current city council, and Alex and I were just shocked to hear about all of the corruption that was happening and how blatant it was with all of the proof and facts that there were, and we had never heard about it. And so we realized that we could maybe fill a gap and help get the word out with social media or whatever, and that ended up spawning the idea for the show.
And that's such amazing that so many people haven't heard about it. And all of a sudden, something just hits them, and then they get hooked. We need younger people. We need people that can work all these machines and internet and all of that.
Well, we're happy to help.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to talk about things that have happened long ago, before I was even born, that you were helping Newport Beach. I think a lot of people don't know that the Back Bay was very close to not being here.
Very close to not being here, and what's amazing about that, and what I was telling myself I wanted to impart to people, over those years, when you think about it, the Robinsons, Frank and Fran, started working on the Back Bay because their son said one day that they were going to build houses around the Back Bay and condos, and the public wouldn't be able to go there. So they built a group up called Friends of Newport Bay, and they started doing lawsuits and advocacy, and ultimately it was purchased by the state. But the thing that I'm amazed about is that fast forward from 1965, when they started, to 1995, by 1995, the state of California started the Southern California Wetlands Recovery Project, because 95% of the wetlands had been built on, and now they were trying to recapture some of them, trying to save the rest of them. And here everybody had worked for 30 years trying to save that, and then all of a sudden the ship of state turns. So I think that'll happen with other things. I mean, maybe climate change is where we're at now. Over time, things have improved. I see that as hopeful.
Now, you were a founding member of SPAWN. Can you tell us why that came about in the first place?
In 1970, I was minding my own business, and Nancy called me, Nancy Skinner, who's in the audience today. She calls up one night and said, "We need somebody to help us with this city council campaign, and come on over." So I did, and we lost. We were trying to get somebody elected, and I took away from that you can't just jump in at the last minute and try to get somebody elected to the council. You need to be in this for the long haul. Ultimately, a neighbor of mine called up, and she was concerned because our bay was filled with trash. So she wanted the homeowner association to do something about it, and I said, no, that isn't going to work. So I said, you need to do something about it, and she said, okay, what? And so we started SPAWN and called it Stop Polluting Our Newport. We identified the problems. We asked for help from the city. It wasn't a fight, it was a common ground that both the city and the residents worked together on. We got to that point with the airport as well. We still haven't gotten together on some of the development issues, and maybe we will.
What you said about being in it for the long haul, you've certainly proven that. And we've seen with this recent election a huge grassroots effort by the community to get 2 city council members elected to break up a political machine that had been operating. Can you tell us about kind of what that has been like and what it's taken to get this far with getting Joy and very soon to be Tim elected.
So we've shown that development, extreme development, overdevelopment, traffic density is an issue. But when it comes to electing people to the council, it doesn't translate very well, because what you see about everybody is the same thing, more or less. They're all saying they care. They all say they don't want overdevelopment. So how are you going to know the difference? The elections don't quite work as well as they should. One of the bad things that happens is that a lot of things people rely, for instance, on either the Republican slate or the Democratic slate. And those are partisan, and most of the things we're dealing with are nonpartisan issues. Like when we work to save the Clean Bay, that's not a partisan issue. That's everybody. Our job, if we do it well, is to educate as many of the people as we can, who then educate others about what our local issues are, and have people trust that rather than the ones that don't have so much to do with us. Who's running who really just cares about Newport? Who's running because they want to make a name for themselves and then be elected to something bigger?
Yeah, just use the city council position as a stepping stone to get to a bigger office.
It is. It's a stepping stone, although it hasn't worked very well for people in Newport up to now.
Without naming names.
So you can, if you do your homework, see these relationships. And then you have to take that information, you have to be sure you're right, and you have to parlay it into your campaign, and you have to make it in such a way that somebody isn't just overwhelmed with information.
And we appreciate you installing that knowledge onto us, speaking out about all of these things. We could talk for hours about everything, and I hope one day we do. But for now, thank you for inspiring Good Morning Newport, and thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. Thank you so much. And I want you to succeed. That's my goal. I want.
Thank you, Jude. Well, thanks for joining us. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you, Gene, for fighting the good fight for so long and helping preserve the unique landscape, local businesses, and public facilities that we love in Newport Beach, California. Now that the election is over, there is so much more to talk about and uncover here in Newport. And hold on, the tip line is ringing. Hello? Dave Ellis figured out that we made a bigger impact on the election than he did. Whoa. Oh, and now he wants to give us money for the show? Tell him to keep his money. For my director, Riley Hayes, for my crew here, and for our live studio audience, this is Alex Crawford saying, from the Back Bay to the Wedge, from Newport Coast to the River Jetties, good morning, Newport.